we'll get into the details. Is there at the Macy's? Do you have a playlist here? And I'll get started on it. Everyone took the day off. Full simmer on this. Oh, thank you, Gizmo. But here it is. And also, the liberals have expectedly been unimaginably disappointing in their coverage over this. No one is calling it what it is. No one is calling it a kidnapping. No one is considering this to be unjustifiable, illegal, totally ridiculous. And everyone is trying to basically do propaganda in their own way. For the Republicans, they now admit pretty much that this is bullshit, right? Republicans pretty much recognize that this is done for oil, right? This is done for oil, and they like it. And it turns out that this is a good thing. It's a good thing to go to war with oil, even though Donald Trump personally railed against the Iraq War. As a matter of fact, it turns out this time is different. It's going to be different. Why is it going to be different? Well, there's no reason to assume that it's going to actually be different, but he just keeps saying it's going to be different, right? So Republicans have taken on that position. It's awesome. We're going to get free oil because they're stupid. They have incredibly, incredibly low IQs. They have the brain of worms, right? So obviously, whatever the Trump administration is saying, they jump into, right? BS, I've heard plenty of liberals call it a kidnapping. Now, if you're talking about members of Congress, then I agree with you. Yes, I'm not talking about regular liberals, chatter. When I talk about libs, I'm not talking about the average person. The average person, I think, especially a lifelong Democratic Party voter, is far more radical than the actual Democratic Party politician at this point. So, no, when I say liberals, I'm talking about the liberal politicians. Although some of them have collectively railed against the action on its illegality, they've actually talked about how this is a misdirection. Ultimately, they still run defense for the justifiable nature of this action by saying Maduro's a brutal, ruthless tyrant. He wasn't democratically elected, all this shit. Now, some of you may think, well, this is actually, ass covering, right? It has no basis in the action that took place here. So anytime you bring that shit up, regardless of whether you believe it or not, you're being a idiot, because the average person, the apolitical normie that hears you say Maduro was a ruthless and brutal tyrant, but it's kind of ridiculous that we illegally extracted him. No one gives a about the process. Okay. When you say someone is a ruthless and brutal tyrant, who cares if you violated the law to actually take him out? Okay. So you're just destroying your own argument that comes afterwards. And it leads me to believe that it's because you don't actually hate that Trump did this at all. You actually like that Trump did this. You just can't say it because you have to be politically polarized against Donald Trump, even though, you're kind of in agreement here and you just simply can't say it. So you just say this thing instead. You're like, oh, this is illegal and up. And perhaps one of the greatest examples of this is Chuck Schumer and the way he's carried himself throughout this entire process, where on the one hand, he keeps saying, Trump said no regime change, but he's doing regime change. But then on the other hand, whenever he's asked directly whether or not he will take any hard actions against the Trump administration, by using any kind of power that Congress has, his answer always is, nah, not really. Not really, no. Okay, so you're not against it then. Thank you, Chuck Schumer. We get it. The social media astroturfing has been insane. In addition to the usual Twitter nonsense, even small Reddit Indian memes communities have been invaded with pro-war shit. Have you noticed this uptick? That's my entire life. So it's not in any way, shape, or form different for me. I take this position all the time. Whenever America engages in a war crime, I say it's going to be bad. This is a war crime. This is illegal. And it's going to have tremendous repercussions down the line that are negative. And it's also not being done for any sort of like American prosperity, but instead it's being done for American capital. And then people yell at me and they say, I'm a loser, I'm gay, I'm socialist, I'm commie, I'm an America hater, I want non-whites to come and dominate this country, or any number of different idiotic things. Oftentimes this used to be just the right-wingers that used to say it. Unfortunately now liberals kind of say similar things as well. Liberal version of this is basically, if you don't like it, you should leave. They don't say white power in the same way that like Republicans do, but liberals will often also do a similar line of argumentation where they go, shut the up, Why can't you let America have a W? We just want to feel like we got a W here. And then a couple of years later, they realize I was right, but that resentment carries over and they move on to the next thing because nobody wants to feel like they were wrong. And everyone wants to, nobody remembers what you said. They just remember how you made them feel. I guess for a lot of liberals, I make them feel bad when I say things that they end up agreeing with later down the line. Whether it takes a year or 5, it doesn't matter. Especially in this increasingly this increasingly kinetic media environment where the internet has exploded in popularity and mass usage, and the media cycles are very fast. It takes a lot shorter of a timeline for people to come to terms with with the impact of our actions. If it took like people 10 years to understand that the Iraq War was bullshit, it took people 2 years to understand that Israel was doing a genocide, in spite of the unimaginable amounts of propaganda coming from Israel and coming from American mainstream media. And regardless of that, people still came to the right conclusion there. People still saw the reality there. So here's where we're at.
You're looking live again. ABC News live coverage here of the arraignment on these charges, narco-terrorism charges in federal court, heavy security presence both inside and outside the court, as you can see. Because this is federal court, there are no cameras in the courtroom, but Aaron Katursky is inside, our chief investigative correspondent, with Nicolas Maduro standing. Aaron now reports that Judge Hellerstein read him the standard rights. I did not know of these rights. Your Honor is informing me of them now, Maduro said through an interpreter. How do you plead to the indictment, Hellerstein asked. That's the judge, of course. And here's Maduro's response. Quote, I am innocent. I am not guilty. I am a decent man. I am still president of my country, Nicolas Maduro responding. Again, that is the headline of the moment here, given our live coverage, that Nicolas Maduro has responded in court to these charges just moments ago.
In the Western Hemisphere, Cuba will be next, potentially Mexico, potentially Colombia, as Donald Trump has mentioned. In Europe, he's talking about overtaking Greenland. European leadership will say nothing about it because they are servile dogs, as we have seen, especially with this incident that took place. And before people compare this to Panama, America already had a military base in Panama, and Noriega was already a CIA asset, and Noriega was not technically in power at the same time. So our previously installed military coup was taken out by the United States of America, whereas in Venezuela, whether Maduro's popularity was waning or not is utterly irrelevant in this process. It is still a sovereign nation that won its sovereignty and continued to fight for its sovereignty in spite of the incredible amounts of sanctions, right? So there is no Panama comparison that you can make in this process, with the exception of the fact that they were done at the same day, January 3rd, only, 36 years apart. So that's what's going on here. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous, totally unjustifiable. It's just straightforward. I wouldn't even say it's like imperialism, because we've actually devolved away from imperialism. Imperialism can be more complex than this. This is just ultimately colonialism. Okay, this is the OG shit. This is like when, the British Empire would just go in with ships, with boats, and dominate the native population and enslave them, right? It's kind of like that. It's a very clear-cut smash and grab. It's no longer as it doesn't even go through the same economic functions with the IMF and the World Bank, or it doesn't even engage in the legalese to justify this sort of action. It's just straight up saying might makes right. It's out in the open. We are the United States of America. We got hard dicks, and there's nothing you can do about it. And unfortunately, saying the quiet part out loud is not actually making a lot of our liberal politicians really reconsider their endless loyalty to American empire. It's actually, they haven't really changed their narrative. They're making it seem like there is a process here that needed to be followed, and they're not following it. And for the Republicans, they actually love the dumbified version of this, where they're like, hell yeah, baby, my dick is hard right now. It's the American cock, and everybody gets to see it, and it's awesome. And yeah, this is I don't know if this is like a hog that says this or if it's a liberal that says this. There's a lot of this stuff. It's like, oh, well, it's a standpoint theory that we're doing. Venezuelans are doing a bodies and spaces. They're actually happy with the fall of the regime. Not that it matters, because there were plenty of Iraqi people that were happy with the fall of Saddam. And whenever someone actually follows up and tries to say, would you depose of Netanyahu? I ask them this question. Did Maduro do a genocide in broad daylight with American supervision, with American guns, with American weapons, or did he do a genocide at all? If the answer is no, then obviously these are different things, right? The question is, would you actually agree to do this to Adolf Hitler? And the answer would be yes. Okay. Would you do this to Maduro? The answer is no, because obviously Maduro and Benjamin Netanyahu are nowhere near on the same playing field as far as brutality, ruthlessness, as far as the number of people that were killed. Okay. Once again, even Milosevic is less evil than Netanyahu, and he deserved it. Great. Except Milosevic, just like Netanyahu, also had the intent and the actions to commit a genocide. Notice how the two people that you've brought up that I actually agree with actually conducted a genocide, whereas this person didn't. Just because someone is a very bad person doesn't mean that this is how you can operate, okay? As a matter of fact, on that same playing field, the reality of the matter is American presidents have been far worse. And the only thing that's actually holding back the rest of the world from doing this to us is the fact that we have 800 plus known military bases and possibly 2,000 plus military bases in general all around the world. So that's the only reason. If we're like, so don't look for any sort of consistency, okay? Don't look for any sort of the consistency. Don't look for any sort of like moral, even moral playing field here. It's incredibly stupid, and you're being ridiculous when you try to maintain a consistent position as you are defending America's ridiculous illegal action, right? I don't really understand what causes people to try and entertain this notion. We already know that it's inconsistent. We already know what your position is. Your position is if America does it, then it's good. If anybody else does anything even remotely similar, then it's bad, right? That's it. That's your position. And we know that that's your position. So I don't know why the you try to make it seem like it's anything but that. I don't understand it at all. Why is it? People can be glad Maduro's gone and hate how it happened. It's like you're not listening. I don't listen to anybody that tries to do this ridiculous thing, this ridiculous like bodies and spaces bullshit. I don't do this. I don't care. And as I've explained to you over and over again, the Iraqis celebrated the fall of Saddam as well. And then they realized perhaps this wasn't the best thing that could have happened to Iraq. Okay? Ask Iraqis who actually, with the exception of Kurds that at least have their own autonomous region now, okay? Ask the Iraqis how they feel about Iraq now, and they will tell you something entirely different. Not that it matters, because you're not listening to what I'm saying, okay? But that's it. Yeah, we have seen a million versions of this over and over and over again. It's completely ridiculous. We can include Ukrainians in this convo now, too, at this point. Yeah, Ukrainians unironically don't even understand what is about to happen to them, because I think this is a new multipolar world. And instead of having a multipolarity argument, instead of having a multipolar world between the two ideological planks of communism and capitalism, you now have regional superpowers that will basically do whatever the they want in their own backyard. And the hope for non-nuclear countries that want to maintain their sovereignty is that their masters are nice, okay? Their masters at least give them high-speed rail or something, right? Because there is no more sovereignty in the world. There is no more nation state in the world unless you have a nuclear arms, unless you have a nuclear arsenal. And you consistently do ICBM deployments to showcase that you do have the capability of sending those nuclear arms all around the world. So let's be real. That is the reality. And if you are, if you're the head of a state that is not under the NATO nuclear umbrella, for example, if you are a non-aligned country, if you're a third world country, you're unless you have nukes. So that's it. And hate to say this because everybody always says I'm a China glazer, and you know, I'm sympathetic to the notion of not posturing against China. Obviously, it's not a secret. I've talked about this quite a bit, and I do love me some Chinese development. But there's only two countries in this triple multipolarity conversation that we're having that are at least willing to go out to bat and engage in straightforward militancy. Russia to a much lesser degree, America obviously being the top country that will actually go out and you, right? But sorry, hold on one second. But China is not doing shit, okay? Is not. China is very clearly not doing shit. Russia to a much lesser degree is crazy. Yeah, much lesser degree in comparison to the United States of America. This doesn't mean that Russia is not behaving in a belligerent way. They are. Obviously, Ukraine is one example of this, and their actions in Africa is another example of this. But Russia to a much lesser degree in comparison to the USSR, for example, right? And certainly to a much lesser degree than the United States of America, right? You are going to find it incredibly difficult to convince Venezuelans that have been subjugated by the Chavez-Maduro regime for 2 decades that it's a bad thing that Maduro's out. The problem is the U.S. will not give Venezuelans the freedom of choice to what happens next, and they will pillage endlessly. Yeah, I don't really care about convincing Venezuelans that don't like Chavez or don't like Maduro. I just only care about explaining what is happening right now and what will happen next. Because at this stage, if you are a Venezuelan living in diaspora and you've heard the Donald Trump administration, after starving your economy in the first term and then offering you temporary protected status in the aftermath of that, only to use you as a talking point in the election cycle to basically say every single one of you is a rapist, drug dealer monster that must be deported to CCOT. If you think that guy actually gives a about Venezuelan safety and security or Venezuelan sovereignty, you're delusional. Okay, if you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, you have to make the calculation. Do I think that this guy who has run the country in a way that I despise, who was actually arrested, apprehended my friends in student protests and things like that, is he actually better or worse than the American government? And the answer, unfortunately, for many of you that don't realize this, is that the American government will always be worse. There are a million examples to show you throughout the world. And I've talked about my own personal experience with this as well. I despise Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Recep Tayyip Erdogan has been in power for 25 plus years at this point. He is repressive. He's authoritarian. He's horrible. But a coup did take place in Turkey. And that coup was conducted by America's parallel state, the Fethullah Gulen Muslim cleric living in the Poconos, who had designed a completely parallel, what you would consider a deep state, a completely parallel state, and Erdogan's forces actually purged this parallel state, and I stand by that, regardless of the fact that I despise Erdogan and can't even go back to the goddamn country because I'm not a moron, okay? Erdogan, for all of his faults and failures, it was still better than an American CIA operative running the country. That's it. So before the diasporoids try to hit me with this line of argumentation, I have personal stake in the matter in my situation. You know what I mean? I've lived through it.
Those saying, quote, I am innocent. I am not guilty. I'm a decent man. I am still president of my country.
Yeah, that's not what we're here to do at this moment. The judge then asked if Maduro has read the indictment. The counsel, about whom we just spoke, answered for him and says,
also, you're a rube if you think whether or not someone is a dictator as long as they align with America's interests. The U.S. does not care if countries are democracies as long as they help our oil companies. Anyone who thinks this and had nothing to do with Maduro being anyone who thinks this had anything to do with Maduro being a dictator is a sucker. Exactly. Like, I'm not going to I'm not in a big hurry to defend Maduro's form of governance, but partially because it's utterly irrelevant in this conversation, right? Like, it's just completely irrelevant in this conversation. And anyone that tries to make that the fixture of this conversation is, even if they're doing it because they genuinely despise Maduro, is a bit of a rube. You're doing propaganda for the American government that the American government isn't even doing. And that's what's even funnier. At least with Iraq, they tried to present this as like liberalizing Iraq, presenting democracy to Iraq. They're not even doing that. So why are you doing it for them while they're also in the same breath saying that you're a rapist, drug dealer, baby decapitator that needs to go to a slave labor prison in El Salvador? It doesn't make any sense. Hassan, I love you, but you are delusional, thinking that the American government is worse than the Venezuelan. Yeah, I know. I know. This is my first time encountering this stuff. American intervention, this is new to me. I had not known that. You're right. Iraq, much better off now. Libya, much better off now. In so many circumstances, when America comes in and just everything up, they oftentimes do a much better job, you're right, than whoever was in charge prior. Again, you can keep saying this over and over again, but the proof is in the pudding. And the reality of the matter is a lot more people are seemingly aware of this process, especially because it doesn't even help a single goddamn person other than, you know, oil and gas giants in general. So you can keep making this argument, but, you know, I'm kind of shocked about this this backlash, which will change for the record. I think like initially before the actual military action in Venezuela, before the invasion, the bombing campaign, and the kidnapping of Maduro, obviously Americans were totally against it, right? Not that it fucking matters. We do whatever the fuck we want. The American government, I'm saying, does whatever the fuck it wants to do, and there's not really much you can do about it. And I guess the best you can do is hope that it doesn't come and knock down your door one day, right? Which it can happen. So, having said that, however, in spite of the propaganda, I think given the fact that so many Americans experience distaste from the global war on terror that was an abject failure, I think there is a lot of negativity around this campaign, with the exception of the hogs and maybe some liberals who are LARPing as CIA operatives in my chat. Let's take a look.
Really surprised if this turns
This is
out
a real
to be
holy
positive
Toledo moment for
Donald Trump, or at
everybody.
least support for this operation. Why? U.S. military ousting Venezuela's president beforehand. Look at this. 47% opposed, just 21% of Americans favored. The unsure was higher than the favor, 29% versus 21%.
Yeah.
Get this.
This is before the military operation took place, for the record. This is before the military operation took place. So let's take a look at the numbers
39%
afterwards.
of Republicans favored it. People are saying, oh, this could be a wag the dog moment. I have to ask, which dog are they wagging the tail of?
Sometimes these numbers change when an operation is seen as successful, but we just don't know. Yeah, we just don't know that yet.
Yeah, we don't know. We're trying our best to make this look good, though. Let's be real. Because that is precisely what they're doing. That is precisely what they're doing. And this is how uniparty consensus is formed, right? If the Republican Party is the abusive, violent, militant party in this equation, the Democratic Party can be seen as like the enabling factor, right? The normalizing factor. The Democrats themselves don't actually go out to bat, with the exception of like brain-broken ogres like John Fetterman. But many of the Democrats will turn around and say, oh, well, you didn't do it the right way, even though it's totally justifiable, even though we would have done a similar thing ourselves. But also at the same time, we would have just gotten like the proper clearance ahead of time. It's never usually about the action itself and the impact of said action. It's how you're engaging in the action. It's always a process conversation. It's always a process argument, a procedural disagreement that the Democrats have with the Republicans. And if you're just like a regular ass dude following this along, why would you not agree with Donald Trump at that point? You look at someone going, well, Maduro is a ruthless tyrant and a despot, and he's awful, and all the Venezuelans are celebrating this action, but you shouldn't have kidnapped him the way you did. Who is that argument for? Right? If I'm a regular dude and I haven't really thought about this stuff at all, and I see this guy that looks kind of like, you know, Latin American Saddam Hussein, you know, getting what's coming to him because everyone, including the liberals, are saying this is, you know, this guy's a brutal despot, a tyrant, ruthless, all this shit. Okay. And one side is saying, yeah, he was a brutal tyrant and we're stealing his oil. Sucks to suck, bitch. We're the United States of America. And the other side is saying, yeah, he was a ruthless tyrant, but it's actually really up that we're stealing his oil. And it's also really up that we actually, you know, kidnapped him without following the proper process. You didn't ask us if we had a say in this. Yeah, obviously the side that's saying, yeah, he was brutal, ruthless tyrant, who gives a shit if we're following the law or not, is going to win in that conversation. It's just, like, I always find myself asking, who is this for? Who is this argument for? Right? Like, oh yeah, this guy was a ruthless tyrant, but you didn't kidnap him the right way. You didn't abduct him the right way. It's like, what do you mean? What right way? If you're saying he's Adolf Hitler, but Latin American, you know, everyone's going to be on board with kidnapping Adolf Hitler.
How interested have people been since this news broke Saturday morning?
Yeah, one of the reasons why I don't think this, wagging of the tail will actually work out is because folks' interest in this story has very much been going adios amigos, goodbye. I mean, just take a look here. Take a look here. Google searches for Nicolas Maduro after peaking this weekend down 70%. Down 70% versus Saturday. There was a peak on Saturday, but John, then the interest went, see you later, goodbye. And more than that, we can look at history, right? We can look at history. Look at another time we went into a foreign country, right? Take a look here. Google searches for Maduro at the peak, 74% lower than when we went into Pakistan and got Osama bin Laden back in May of 2011. And that had a little bit of a boost for Barack Obama, the president back then, but it was very much of a fleeting boost. So the bottom line is, you look at these numbers.
Yeah, also, bin Laden did 9/11. What is the 9/11 comparison for Maduro? Like, yeah, no shit. Yeah, there is you can talk about the legality of that operation or whatever, but like, what the did Nicolas Maduro do to America or Americans, right? Like, nothing. Like, there is no connective tissue, okay? Unless we are, I guess, a nation that only cares about some of the most reactionary population that happens to preside over Doral. Like, that's it. That's who we're doing this for. You know what I mean? It's like a 9/11. It's like a million 9/11s for them. That's Maduro existing is like a million 9/11s for them. It's just dumb as. It makes no damn sense.
There's fleeing interest in the story and way less interest than we had back during a military operation that did provide a boost to Obama, but not really one that was long lasting.
Interesting to see if that changes over the course of the week with football over, but this really does show that people stop paying attention pretty quickly on Saturday. Yeah. In terms of what happens next, obviously the United States says it's running Venezuela, but what do the prediction markets say? Who do they think will be running Venezuela?
Yeah, who do we think is going to be leading Venezuela? Look, it's a little bit of a cluster car.
Oh my God. And it's like sponsored gambling. We're gambling on who America will let lead a sovereign nation. I like that Maria Corina Machado is at 20%, by the way. Edmundo Gonzalez is like the person that's at least like the guy who you got. Delcy Rodriguez, who's the vice president, who's now the interim president. Okay. She is through and through a Chavista, as far as I understand, even though the operation itself was a little bit suspicious and worthy of scrutiny on whether, like, what level of involvement existed within the Venezuelan administration, within the Venezuelan government. But I like that the very clear-cut CIA operative here that has been trying to do this for decades now has had her moment in the spotlight, and boom, instantly she's cut out. And maybe even for a very pathetic and very selfish reason. But once again, sucks to suck. I mean, I think she's a disgusting little creature anyway. I don't give a about her perspective. And I hope people understand that the Nobel Peace Prize has maybe the same level of authority as like the FIFA Peace Prize, if we're being real. Okay? So yeah. We'll obviously talk about the Maria Corina Machado part of this equation as well. It was pretty funny. Insanity. Sources close to the White House told the Washington Post Trump lost interest in backing Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado to lead the country because she accepted her Nobel Peace Prize rather than demanded it be given to Trump, which was viewed as the ultimate sin. I don't know if this is 100% valid. I know it's like fun to say Trump is a baboon. And this is one of those, like, Trump is not doing Venezuela coup. Trump is not doing a Venezuela coup the right way type argument that you hear from different sides of the State Department. I'm sure there's like disagreements. Remember, there's always different planks in the State Department. Okay? There's always different planks in the State Department. You're going to have like the reasonable coup guys. They're all pro coup, of course, but you're going to have some guys who are like, you're not doing the coup the right way that we were supposed to do it. and you're going to have other people in the State Department who are just like, whatever Trump says goes. So I think like there's probably a little bit of friction happening internally, and that's why you're seeing these sorts of reports coming from Washington Post, New York Times, and other places where all the reasonable State Department guys are actually very upset. This statement was, of course, repeated by my favorite 2028 presidential hopeful. Where is it? Oh, Chris Murphy. Here it is. Chris Murphy says, they got rid of Maduro, but let Maduro's corrupt thugs stay in charge. It's mostly because they just want their oil friends to get rich, and Maduro's crowd might let them. But I guess it's also because the pro-democracy opposition leader was actually righteous, and that's bad. This is, of course, Chris Murphy, who once famously said in the first Trump administration, we tried to do a soft coup in Venezuela, and Trump it up. And I could not believe it. I thought that was an unbelievable admission. It's like, you're supposed to be a Democrat, brother. You're supposed to be the anti-war guy. Remember? The anti-war Democrats? Do you guys remember that? Of course you don't, because all of you are like at most 30 years old, and you have never actually experienced a Democratic Party that even entertained the notion of being anti-war, because shouts out to Barack Obama. So yeah. Maybe some of you that are older remember a time when the Democrats at least tried to present themselves as anti-war, and all of that went away with the global war on terror. But yeah, Chris Murphy attacks Donald Trump from the right here. Didn't think it was possible to attack Trump from the right on this, but here we are. Very, very funny to imply Trump's oil friends wouldn't get rich with Machado. Machado herself has made this central to her political project. This is literally all she talks about. Machado was begging in a business conference in Florida to allow her to run the country and install her as a puppet leader so she can give all of the natural resources of Venezuela to those who want to rape and pillage it to foreign capital. So it's very strange that he's making it seem like Machado was the pro-democracy choice here. Get the out of here, okay? But once again, this is the same Chris Murphy who in 2020 said, then it got real embarrassing in April 2019. We tried to organize a kind of coup, but it became a debacle. Everyone had told us they'd rally to Guaido, got cold feet, and the plan failed publicly and spectacularly, making America look foolish and weak. This once again goes back to the same thing that I always say. American foreign policy is bipartisan. American foreign policy is uniparty, okay? That's it. That's it. It's uniparty with very little distinction between one party over the other. Okay. So yeah. Juan Guaido Twitch says, I respect Chris Murphy. I can't believe the real legitimate leader of Venezuela is in my chat right now. I cannot believe it. We've long asked the question, where's Juan Guaido? And maybe many of you thought that this was a joke. Well, it turns out he's here. He's in my Twitch chat saying he respects Chris Murphy. Why aren't you considering the Venezuelans and Miami's feelings? Machado high? Machado. Yeah. I'm not considering anybody's opinions or feelings on this. It's always funny when people are like, why don't you listen to this? Why don't you listen to the victims? It's like, dude, what are you talking about? I'm telling you what is happening, and I'm telling you what's going to happen. Do you think that like the Venezuelan perspective even matters a little bit? And it sucks because I said this exact same thing during Ukraine. And a lot of people were like, why don't you care about the average Ukrainian? Because I was like, because this is America, okay? America does not care about the perspectives of the average Ukrainian. Now, it's taken a couple years, but I think a lot of Ukrainians now realize that turns out maybe America doesn't give a about the feelings of the average Ukrainian whenever they're making decisions. And it's not even like totally a Trump versus Democrat thing either. Let's be real. America as a government doesn't even give a shit about Americans and their feelings. Why would they ever care about foreigners, dude? Are you kidding me? The American government won't even allow, despite being the wealthiest nation on the planet, won't even allow its own citizens to have free health care. And there are foreign nationals in my chat talking about, why don't you care about our feelings? Why won't you care about the feelings of foreign nationals? I'm talking about American action. I'm talking about American imperialism. You think your feelings play a role in this equation? My feelings don't even play a role in this equation, and I'm a American. I pay so much in taxes, and the government still doesn't give a shit about what I have to say. Okay? Stop with this delusion. Stop with this delusion. The best you can possibly do is gum up the works to the best of your ability and continue protesting and continue making it as difficult as possible. Okay, for the administration to do this without any scrutiny whatsoever. God damn. The irony is we are thinking about that because we discussed how much American meddling creates fail states. Yes. The funniest part is the Iranian idiots in LA asking, Persian idiots in LA asking for Trump to do it to Iran. Dumb fucks. I know. And that's coming too. As long as you continue to actively admit you don't give a fuck about us Venezuelans, then so be it. At least you admit it, harsh and heartless as it is. Brother, it's a little bit of that hard to swallow pill I think that people need to hear in the same way that Trump does. You know what I mean? I do actually unironically care about the safety and security of Venezuelans, by the way. I do. That's why I'm arguing against intervention of this sort. I want Venezuelans to have a sovereign country. I want Venezuela and the Venezuelan economy to be rid of unjustifiable sanctions. I want Venezuela to be able to develop. I want Venezuela to be able to have democracy. Okay? But if you think that it's going to come at gunpoint with American empire led by a person who openly says that their ultimate desires here is not who actually controls Venezuela or what kind of repression that they do in at the behest of controlling Venezuela, okay? No, Americans will make this worse. That's obvious. Okay, glad that you understand. Okay? My argument is that if you're going to come in here and tell me that I'm wrong about this, I'm just going to keep presenting a million different examples where this has taken place and it hasn't been good for the people that live there, okay? This is a problem us Venezuelans should have to figure out ourselves. Exactly. Well, that's my point. You see, that's what I believe. That's what I am advocating for. Okay? But when you justify American intervention in any way, shape, or form in that situation, you're not advocating for that. And at which point I tell you, it doesn't matter what your perspective is. Do you see what I mean? And we can talk about like how we got here if you want. You know, we can talk about how we got here, which once again also plays a big role in you know, what America was doing too. That's literally what he said he believes in. Did you just realize that? Yeah, you tell him. Yeah, I know people, when I say harsh words, okay? When I say harsh words, people get very frustrated by it. They go, how dare you say those harsh words? But I think the faster people realize that American intervention is not going to be helpful for you, and any kind of justification around like, oh, well, you know, Maduro is a despot or whatever the or, you know, Maduro arrested or shot student protesters or any number of different things that you're presenting here is just being used as a justification for why America is doing this kind of action. So all you're left in that situation is just hurt feelings. But, you know, neither you nor myself have any say in this process. I'm just here to tell you that any kind of like, oh, well, you know, Maduro was bad, and I'm glad that this like very bad president was able to do something that was ultimately good. It's not going to lead to a better future for Venezuelans at all, given the many different examples we can point to. Okay? It actually takes away from autonomy and sovereignty for Venezuelans when you have American intervention of this sort. Okay? American intervention of this sort that didn't start with Donald Trump, mind you. This intervention began far before Donald Trump. Donald Trump is just the one who went with it and said, we're going to do the maximum thing that we that no one would do in other circumstances. We're going to do it because I'm crazy enough to do it. That's why I also get annoyed at people saying like, this is just Marco Rubio's personal pet project. Like, no, it's not, man. This is America's project since the Venezuelan oil company, the petroleum company existed, okay? This is not new, and it's not even 15 to 25 years, okay? This has been going on for a very long time. Venezuela is one of the first countries in the Western Hemisphere that actually found oil. They found oil even before they knew what to do with oil, basically. They've been extracting it since the 1800s, okay? Like, and the company, the Nationalization Initiative, did not start under Chavez, which is also somewhat false. The Nationalization Initiative started far before Chavez in the 70s. The only difference with Chavez, just like with Mossadegh, is that they wanted to take ownership over the contracts. They wanted to take ownership over how the extraction was taking place, who was actually making money off of it. Okay, it's been this is Yeah, they're also literally, the American government is also literally saying they're furthering the Monroe Doctrine. You know, it's not like this is not a new concept at all. This is just Trump playing along with the same uniparty protocols that the American government has always had, working at the behest of capital, making sure that they control all resource extraction in their own backyard, as they like to say, you know, the Western Hemisphere. So yeah, that's where we're at. Yes, Chavez just finalized the expropriation by killing the contracts and kicking out American management. That's it. How is that not like Mossadegh? No, I said it's exactly like Mossadegh. It's the exact same thing that happened with Mossadegh. And we all know what happened to Mossadegh, right? In Iran. Ugh. It's ironic because American repression for years and years, for decades, okay? American intervention and American repression for decades takes root within this country, whether it be Venezuela or Iran, right? America has very sophisticated means of going in and finding wealthy people that have business interests in thwarting communism, thwarting socialism, or any kind of socialization initiative. So they tap into the, Chamber of Commerce, as they did in Venezuela. They tap into the big billionaires that own media companies, that own grocery chains and whatnot. And then they actively foment discontent. While on the other hand, they also apply heavy sanctions and carefully excise Venezuela or any other foreign adversary that we've declared a foreign adversary because they want sovereignty over their own natural resources to not participate in the global marketplace in the same ways that they normally would. Okay? And then year over year, the economy worsens. And while there is still active intervention and active interference from the CIA, from the American government, obviously, as the economy worsens, volatility increases, people get more mad. People say, I'm starving. What the fuck are you doing? Why are you not giving me food? Okay? So then there is real protests that build up on top of the discontent that was fomented by the Western world, okay? Oftentimes by the CIA. And the leaders of this discontent are oftentimes like nationals themselves, nationals with a different ideological investment or nationals with a different goal in mind. Oftentimes the goal is domination and control over the resources anyway. And then what takes place is tremendous amounts of protests and a government that is much less powerful than the most powerful government on the planet, the leader of the hegemonic superpower here, the United States of America, ends up engaging in incredible amounts of cruelty and repression because they have a state that they need to manage. This is not a justification for these actions. This is just analysis, okay? I'm not saying this is good. I'm just trying to explain to you how it works. That's how it's worked in America as well. During times of war, we invent new methods of cruelty, even if it's not a hot war, but a cold one. Red Scare propaganda, McCarthyist trials, and blacklisting people and even imprisoning them took place in both of the instances of the Red Scare trials historically in the United States of America. Why? Because we were fighting against communism, right? So America's done this as well. Other countries also do it with regular frequency. That's why I also constantly say, you will see how much America cares about free speech when America's power in the global stage is waning and other superpowers get to try and influence the American government. You'll see. You'll see how much free speech we have. We've already shown that we don't give a fuck about free speech during the student protest movements that took place in this country under the Democratic leadership, and then also certainly under Donald Trump as well. As I was saying, state repression begins, or state repression greatly increases, and that state repression ends up fomenting even more real discontent, even more militancy, as a matter of fact. And the more militancy there is, the more discontent there is, the more state repression there is. So even if someone comes into power with great hopes and dreams, if someone came into power thinking like, oh yeah, I'm just going to continue the Chavista improvements, and we're going to learn from the lessons of the previous Chavez rulership, you ultimately drop all of that because you are trying to maintain stability and trying to maintain sovereignty, fighting against one of the most powerful forces on the planet. And that's how cruelty, that is how the state repression of state cruelty increases and grows. Okay? There's outside forces that you are constantly fighting against, and those outside forces have a really good way of creating forces inside of the country, both by way of sanctions and crippling the economy, which Trump openly stated he wanted to make the economy scream, and then also simultaneously, actively creating discontent amongst the population, some real, some pushed by the United States of America. And then we turn around and we use that discontent as a reason for why we must intervene in Venezuelan affairs. We use that discontent as an argument to why we must destroy the Venezuelan government. We must destroy the Venezuelan population. We must steal their natural resources. Now, of course, what's interesting is this administration is not even doing that. They're doing this instead. And yet there are still liberals I see all over the timeline going, listen to Venezuelan voices, listen to Venezuelan voices, listen to Venezuelan voices. They're so happy. They're so happy. They're celebrating this. And that is the reason why I say I don't care, and neither does the American government. So you are just doing propaganda for this administration that keeps saying, we don't give a about the Venezuelan voices at all. We're just here to steal the oil. We're just here to steal the oil, the natural resources, and dominate our own hemisphere. Okay? I don't know if you're telling that to yourself or you're telling that to others, or you're just saying it because you want to feel good about this action, even though all signs point to this being bad. But ultimately, it has no basis on this commentary. It has no basis in my analysis. As I've said time and time again, I didn't listen to the Iraqi voices when they were celebrating the fall of Saddam and the American intervention. I didn't listen to the Libyan voices against Gaddafi, because at the end of the day, those voices don't matter. And the evidence of their voices not mattering is exactly what we've done to Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya. The only time there is a successful example of development is Vietnam, when after 20 years of protracted struggle, the Vietnamese population is actually able to liberate itself from the throes of American control and American dominance. And look at Vietnam now. Okay? You're saying this in the most autistic way possible. You're trying to say what they feel doesn't matter because their feelings and interests won't be considered by the American state. Not that you don't personally care about them as people. Yes, you're right. I'm saying, of course, I care about the safety and security of Venezuelans, which is precisely the reason why I'm arguing against this kind of action. But if you're going to come in here and use standpoint epistemology to justify American imperialism at a time when the American government itself is not even entertaining that notion that like Venezuelans' safety and security is a primary focus here, you're being a bit of a dupe. Okay? Like I said, America doesn't even care about American citizens. Why the would they care about Venezuelan citizens? Let's be real.
It's been summarized for him and that he understands it. Maduro then waived the public reading of the charges, says he will read them himself. The judge did then read him his rights. He acknowledged his counsel, Mr. Pollack. Then the judge read essentially his Miranda, and then Maduro said he did not know of these rights, but that he is now informed. And then Maduro went on to plead not guilty.
Wow. He says, I am still president of my country.
Right. And he says that for a number of reasons. I would imagine, number one, because that's the way he sees his situation. Number two, Manuel Noriega, the Panamanian dictator who was taken into custody in the Bush administration.
This is not a good comparison because Panama was under military control by Noriega, who was already a CIA asset. Okay? You already had an American military base. It's very different than a full-blown sovereign nation. Okay? And the president of a full-blown sovereign nation that has fought long and hard for its sovereignty.
And we heard from Bill Barr earlier today. He was the AG in charge of overseeing that at the Department of Justice at the time. But the head of state immunity issue is the one that he knows he can press, that he will try to use to defend himself, that I have immunity because I am the head of state. It did not work for Noriega in that trial back in Panama, and he was indicted on very similar drug charges, drug trafficking charges. The other thing that I would mention is, just in terms of venue, as Emily pointed out, it could have been anywhere. I think some people would have argued that Florida was a good venue for this particular case. It is in New York. It falls under the U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton in the Southern District of New York in this case, and they have a lot of experience with this, but it is unlikely to go to trial for a very long time. And one of the issues, it will have a very long process, is what I'm hearing from former federal officials. And so he is likely to sit in jail for quite some time.
That's a fascinating detail, how long he sits in jail. And that cartel of the Sons, De La Solis, you've got those members, you've got Tren de Aragua, you've got others. Those people are going to try to continue to do business. And that's just fresh intelligence on the ground for who will be there, the United States. And so it gets more complicated day by day, I would imagine. But that is such an interesting point of how long he'll sit there. I was trying to find his age, because that matters too, right? The longer he sits there, maybe that changes things for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been in power for 17 years. And we can look up his age. I'm not exactly sure, but it is, he's not recognized. 50 countries do not recognize him as the legitimate leader of this country, including the EU. So this is we just heard about this from Michael Waltz at the United Nations. So this is there's a lot of consensus on this. Did you just discover?
Yeah, I found it, and maybe because I'm getting older, but 63 doesn't seem that old to me.
Yeah, I would put him around there. And he's a tall man with a big.
Well, apparently he was towering over his counsel.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Just want to point out too, his wife now has counsel as well. Texas Attorney Mark Donnelly filed motion to be admitted as counsel for Celia Adela Flores de Maduro. So I believe that there are something is happening with her right now, according to Paul's notes in the room. It appears we are getting a sense of a very defiant Maduro in this courtroom, insisting he has done nothing wrong repeatedly, to the point where the judge...
Dude, it's awesome. We just make up fake charges. We just do a very open, broad daylight kidnapping operation. And we're like, well, in our domestic rules, in our domestic laws, we've decided that you've done a crime. Sorry. And then everyone talks about it like there's any legitimacy here whatsoever. It's interesting. I think that attitude-wise, I'm noticing a shift here, at least in the way that like the American government is operating, where clearly the American government is saying like, nah, we don't really give a about any of this stuff. Like, we just want the oil. We want to dominate Venezuela. Who gives a shit? And yet both Fox News and also New York Times and everybody else is like trying to make it seem like there is any sort of legitimacy to any of the actions that were taken. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you always wanted to move past liberal democratic values. No, I want the actual... you always wanted to move past liberal democratic values. Respecting the sovereignty of other countries is one of those liberal democracy values. What did you expect? No, brother. I want actual dignity and respect for other nations, okay? That's the difference. Liberal democratic values is a fake patina that they slap onto it to do fascism the right way, okay? By claiming process, by claiming that there's any sort of democratization initiative taking place. I first and foremost want people to have dignity, want people to live good lives. I want them to be rid of American imperialism, okay? My argument against the liberal international order is that they utilize process and paperwork and make it seem as though there is a standard here that they're applying, when in fact, there is no real standard when America decides to do whatever the fuck it wants. Do you understand? Good point by chatter above. This would only be legitimate in a UN court or ICC, not a domestic American trial. He's not an American citizen. He has not done a crime in America. If he's done an international crime, should be an international court of The Hague. No, the argument that they're making, that's why they're using drug trafficking as a charge. They're saying that like if there's a criminal that is like, actually trafficking drugs in the United States, like okay, I'll give you an example. Okay? I'll give you an example. The Honduran president, which Donald Trump recently pardoned. Okay. That is a former head of the state. Okay. And during during his tenure, he participated in cocaine trafficking into the United States of America. His name is Juan Orlando Hernandez. And he actually did that shit, right? And then there was an active court case. There was an investigation. They found him guilty, right? And he went to prison. And then Trump pardoned him. In that situation, there is like valid reason, valid suspicion, a real investigation that took place. And then last but not least, he wasn't even, if I'm not mistaken, he wasn't even captured as the president. Like, that dude was literally doing the narco trafficking, right? So there is a validity to arresting and apprehending foreign nationals if they are genuinely found to be guilty of harming American citizens. Like, I mean, that's the same principle behind like Osama bin Laden, right? Like, Honduras extradited him, right? We did the proper protocols in that situation. Okay. This is not the appropriate, this is not anything. We just decided we can just make up a crime. Okay. We decided that we could just make up a crime, kidnap this dude, okay, bomb the out of its capital, kidnap him, and then make it seem like there's any sort of real legal process taking place here. And what a lot of people don't realize is that this completely violates the sovereignty of every country in Latin America. And it's actually, that's the reason why they're doing it, right? If you don't play ball with us, we come into your country, we say, hey, you have to have, Chevron dominate your country. You have to have Walmarts in every corner. We will enslave your population to work in Amazon distribution facilities, right? Right? We don't want to use China anymore. We want to use Mexicans. And if you say, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to enslave my population. That's insane. We go, oh, well, you're a narco trafficking hub. Turns out, sorry. Now you have to be lasered. We'll abduct you in the middle of the night and we'll ship your ass to the Southern District of New York, where we'll throw on like a sham trial. And whoever we install in your place will play ball. That's it. That's what America is doing. And it's not like they're hiding that they're doing that. They're just straight up saying it. Which is why I find this extra strange. Like, unless you are a straight up die-in-the-wool hog, okay? Unless you are a straight up dumb Republican. And if you are a dumb Republican, I can explain to you how none of this stuff actually benefits you either, from a totally selfish perspective too. But unless you're like a dumb Republican, how the hell do you look at the situation and go, well, at least the Venezuelans are celebrating, or whatever the you know what I mean? Like, do you not realize that this is exactly what happened? You're supposed to be a little bit smarter than this, right? Like, at least liberals are supposed to be a little bit smarter than hogs. But I think like American imperialism is so calcified in the collective consciousness of Americans that they just cannot even remotely think of anything but like America's kind of still doing the right thing, even when they're doing it the wrong way. No, they're not. They're not doing the right thing at all. They're doing the wrong thing, and they're doing it the wrong way.
Has had to stop him from talking.
Yeah, and he said, well, we could talk about the 4 counts and the fact that you want to, say that you're not guilty to all 4, but we're not doing it today. I want to bring in Carrier Bond.
Yes, explain how it's good or bad from a selfish standpoint. I already did earlier, but I'll repeat it once again. The Iraq War was not good for anyone. It was not good for the soldiers that were there. It was certainly not good for the Iraqi civilians that were slaughtered ruthlessly. It was not good for the power vacuum that created in the aftermath of Saddam being taken out. We destroyed and destabilized this massive country. And it was good for a couple people, though. It was good for Dick Cheney. It was good for Halliburton that got fat contracts, which Dick Cheney was literally the president of Halliburton and or the CEO of Halliburton before he became the vice president. It was good for all of the oil companies, right? Because then they got to extract the previously nationalized Iraqi oil fields, right? And it was good for, I guess, like young upstarts in ISIS that were presented as like the connective tissue between Iraq and 9/11 somehow. So it was good for them. They They got a lot of play. Nah. I'll pick you. They got a lot of play off of this. It was good for Blackwater, right? Which had a steady flow of new veterans that they could just hire that were looking to get back into the action. It was good for Israel that got to topple and destabilize a regional actor that, could potentially invite harm or keep Israel in check. But it wasn't good for the average American, right? And I think a lot of people understand that. That's partially why I compare this to like China, who at the same time, while America was engaging in this like endless military adventures all around the world and doing American imperialism, China was focusing on development, right? And that's precisely the reason why they were able to improve the material conditions of the average Chinese citizen over the same time frame. Okay? That's it. That's it. Because none of this stuff is good for you. It's not good for you at all. You might think it's good for you. You're like, well, at least the price of oil is low. It's like, okay, well, keeps increasing, right? And it seems like everything else is not pegged to the dollar, the oil, or the price of an oil barrel anymore. Anyway, with all the corporate consolidation that has taken place, so it wasn't good for anybody. It wasn't good for the people who were celebrating the toppling of Saddam in Iraq, and it certainly wasn't good for the average American either. So that's it. This is precisely why the platitude of war is pointless and supposed anti-war movies like Garland's Warfare is so soulless. They strip the war of the context and pretend it's enlightened, whereas war is immensely beneficial for a small group of people and ignoring the context hides that. Yes, war is always good, and wars are not meant to be won. Wars are just meant to continue in the backdrop, okay? And that's precisely what has happened with American war. There are always people making money in a war. It's just you're not making any of that money. And also, before people say, okay, if we had like some kind of real military Keynesianism, or if we had like real robust social democracy, would that justify all the endless extraction of natural resources from around the globe? No. I'm just saying that we don't even dignify the American labor aristocracy with the benefits of the imperial super profits. So if you are a selfish American who thinks you are going to benefit from this, at least for the time being, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not benefiting shit. But that's a second conversation that must take place later down the line, even if we get there, right? What is this? From a locked friend. I know I keep stating various variations of this take, but so far the only people Trump bombed who dug in and committed to a protracted fight on Allah won for all intents and purposes. He's obsessed with kicking in rotten doors, but the minute he meets real resistance, he bails. Oh, it's true. True. That's also true. You have to fight back. If might makes right, then the only way you can survive is by making it as costly as possible. Right? That's it. That's it.
Again, we have a team of people who are watching this for us, legal experts, and we also have Paul Morrow, who is a legal expert as well, a former NYPD, and has been inside that courtroom many times. He's at the courthouse. So, Carrie Urban, I want to go to you now about the defiance that we are hearing reported inside the courtroom. And was that anticipated? Does that matter?
Interesting take, Hassan. It's not an interesting take at all. It's just objective reality. With respect to what took place between Iran and Israel, they didn't stop because they came to their senses, or they didn't stop because they became woke. They stopped because Iran was depleting the out of their defense systems. That's it. Interesting take, Hassan. Not what I heard last week. Yeah. Wait, what? This has been my perspective and something that I have described over and over again for especially the last 2 years. This is not even like bias framing or anything. This is just an analysis over objective reality. I'm not giving you like a unique take here. It is difficult. It is difficult to achieve your goals if the other side is making it difficult for you.
Oh, yeah. So the fact that he's wearing a black shirt on top of his orange jumpsuit, that's defiance in a T-shirt, right? It's symbolizing control. It's saying, look,
Yes, you're using so many words to say he's got aura.
I'm doing what I want to do still, and I'm in charge. But look, his wife, and since we're talking about ages, she's 69, and she is about to be arraigned. She's no shrinking violet. She was the head of Venezuela's Congress, what's Congress for them. She was Attorney General, and there are some serious allegations against her in this indictment.
So how did America become the richest nation then? The you talking about neocolonialism? The I know is not as fruitful as it used to, but it's still, stocks are doing great. Don't BS and say it wasn't good for America. BS. It kept industries involved there. Mad America better. Maybe not as good to negate the worsening material conditions due to capitalism, but in general, it's good. Oh my God. Okay, third worldists, you're right. The war you must be waging is with the American proletariat, the labor aristocracy. Okay, yes. Let's not in the heart of empire. Me. Okay, I shouldn't be trying to educate other Americans to snap out of this reality. You're right. I should be telling every single person. I should be actually maybe even fighting with fisticuffs my Amazon delivery driver, okay, when he shows up at my doorstep, because he also is participating in the labor aristocracy, in the extraction of imperial super profits. Thank you for your incredible adept analysis here. You actually figured it out. You dialed in. You figured it out. This is the most appropriate way that I should be conducting myself. Okay, it's another like Maoist third world is in an effort to find like moral consistency, unironically, basically turn into like anarchists and shit libs somehow. I don't know how. I don't know why. They just like lose sight of how to communicate with people. They lose sight of all of that, and they just become weirdos. It's also wrong. Like what the argument you're making is that like a regular dude that works at Starbucks gets a 401k and therefore they're also participating in the imperial super profits because their 401k is going to look better when the market's doing better. Is that unironically the argument that you're presenting here? Jesus Christ, dude. What an insane statement. We make jokes about people who think they have an ownership stake in the stock market all the time. Why would you think this is any different? Yes, Americans have been duped into believing that they also play a formative role. Like they also get benefits from all of this shit. They don't. The only benefit they get is that they're not literally staring on the other side of the barrel of the gun. That's it. That's the only benefit that the average American worker gets, okay, is that you are at least not under the boot, okay? In some instances, you're wearing the boot as a servant of empire, but you're not under the boot, and that's it. Like broadly, if we're talking about the American population, yes, your biggest benefit is that you don't live in the country that is being destroyed, dominated, used and abused, raped and pillaged. That's it. That's the biggest benefit you get. And it's a tremendous benefit if you are under the boot, right? If you're sitting under the boot and you're looking at Americans living in the heart of empire, you're like, oh my God, like these guys are living large. It's true. But I, too, am also living in the heart of empire. And my goal here is to try and educate people on what we do, what empire does, why it does the things that it does, and how it doesn't actually end up benefiting people at all.
Including the fact that she attended a meeting where she accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes to broker a meeting between a large-scale drug trafficker and, wait for it, the director of Venezuela's National Anti-Drug Office. Yes, they actually have one, apparently. Her nephews were recorded, presumably to DEA sources, and they said that they were, quote, at war.
Come on, man. You can't say that the benefit is not the whole point or pose it as negligible. Brother!
I'm not a fucking Filipino Maoist, okay? I'm an American citizen living in the United States of America. Shut the fuck up. Jesus Christ.
I'm not talking to people that are already, I'm not talking to the Iraqi family member who lost his family to American imperialism. I'm talking to a person who probably did the imperialism, who probably has a cousin that went and did that shit to make them realize what this looks like, okay? Shut the up. Many of you are also like that. You're just LARPing. Many of you are not actually living under the crushing boot of American empire. You just read too many books, and now you LARP as though you are living under the crushing boot of American empire, or you are at least a morally consistent, intellectually honest diasporoid yourself. Okay? Jesus Christ. God damn, every conversation, even when I'm in the process of making an anti-imperialist argument, they have to argue with me on the aesthetics of the anti-imperialist argument. They're like, oh, you need to just like talk about how every American soldier is a terrorist that needs to be shot and killed. Why aren't you doing that? I don't know, because I'm not insane, okay? Shut the up.
With the United States. And that's very helpful language, I think, for the government's case as they bring that, for sure. And those were her nephews. But interestingly, they indicated in this meeting that they were seeking to raise $20 million in drug proceeds to support a campaign by Celia for her re-election campaign.
I think you underestimate your role outside the U.S. You try to redeem Americans. All right, good luck. I hope I'm wrong and you can do it. But you're also awakening many people throughout the world to the horrors that USA commit, and that matters too. No, this is the exact same argument that we have whenever we talk about, like when I talk about transphobia, I'm not talking to trans people. They already experience transphobia, okay? They already know what that is. They live it every day. When I'm talking about, you know, anti-black, white supremacist racism, I'm not talking to black people. I'm talking to people who are in the margins, who might actually entertain that kind of ideal that I'm trying to pull off the ledge here, okay? And when I'm talking about American imperialism, I'm talking to mostly Westerners, okay? Mostly Westerners. I'm not talking to the people who are victims of American imperialism. The f do you mean? You already know what that looks like, okay? Jesus Christ. Please stop. Why do you keep getting pissed at valid points? Because you want to know why? Because this argument is utterly unproductive and incredibly stupid, and it's just me getting one guy, maybe not one guy, but like 30 guys in this situation, and it makes us look like clowns because it is an infinitely easier argument to process if you just go, yeah, based. It's actually awesome. America's dicks are so mighty. It's actually awesome. We're going to get free oil. I'm combating against much more powerful, nefarious forces here when I'm actually conducting myself a certain way. Okay? And many of you don't know this. Many of you might be morally correct in your position, but you're being annoying, and it's impossible to actually penetrate people's collective consciousness when they've been duped into thinking that American empire is mighty and that's a good thing for them. When I got a bunch of people chirping in my goddamn ear being a nuisance. Okay? Shut up. Shut up. Stop chirping.
Or National Assembly when she was running that. So it's quite a family operation that has been using the Venezuelan government as a front for this international drug operation for many years now.
So, you know, the most recent video that I remember where we saw anything coming from Maduro was in that moving car where he was saying, you know, come and get me. And, you know, he's not afraid of anything, that sort of thing. I'm paraphrasing. Some of it was salty. But I'm curious to know what's being seen in court today. Is that the individual who was anticipating being taken? They were trying to go into, you know, a locked room. They were trying to get away and hide in their protective room, and they couldn't outrun our U.S. military, he and his wife.
Yeah, that's right. And look, this is standard processes of justice that's happening right now. They're being arraigned. They're entering their pleas. They are, we're seeing who's representing them. And his wife, it seems like, is up next. The fact that
that's the other part of this equation. Like, I don't even know the is Maduro's wife got to do with any of this. Like, they're like, yeah, his children and his wife were also trafficking cocaine. Everyone was trafficking cocaine, actually. They were doing the cocaine. They were boofing it. And they were doing it. And also they had guns. Yeah. They had machine guns that they were going to traffic cocaine with.
He wants to read, apparently, the charges himself. I think you just said that out loud. I didn't see that in the notes, but that's quite interesting as well. He is, I think, like Martha was pointing out, you know, he is very much wanting to portray to the world, I am the president of Venezuela. I am in charge, and I'm not going down without a fight. Now, of course, because of the Noriega precedent and this being a very, I think, open and shut law enforcement case with the added benefit of defense.
Yeah. Remember when they were trying to say Maduro was trafficking fentanyl and they completely dropped fentanyl and now they're saying it's actually cocaine? What happened? I thought the argument was that Maduro was trafficking metric tons of fentanyl into the United States of America. And now they're not even doing that. Fentanyl is not even mentioned once in the 25-page indictment. Not once. What happened? I thought fentanyl was the great WMD. I thought Maduro was the one trafficking fentanyl. He loves trafficking fentanyl. This is like WMD that loves trafficking in the United States of America. They just dropped it. They're just like, it's cocaine, actually.
This is from a national security perspective. I don't really think he has much of a shot, but this is going to take some time, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
So it's interesting from our team, our producing team, and also Paul Morrow in the courthouse. The wife, Celia Flores, is dressed the same as Maduro. She confirms her identity. Her voice is weak or thin. She waives her charges being.
By the way, this is no different than like in the Roman Empire, they would parade the like heads of like tribes that they from inside of the city streets, like in a triumphant manner to like get all the peasants and everybody else to like, yeah, triumph, like the Roman triumph, the spectacle of it all. They did the exact same thing with Maduro, with like the doors open and like all this, the perp walk that they made him do, all this shit. It's just a way to say like, look how powerful we are. Like, look, you see that? That's the head of a state right there, and we just kidnapped him in the dead of the night like it was nothing, right? And I think maybe it works for some Americans. Maybe it makes some Americans who are utterly powerless and very insecure feel like they have some kind of power in their lives, right? They fall for the spectacle in the same way that like the Roman peasant did, I guess. I don't know. But ultimately, what's happening here, what's taking place here is that this is a threat, okay? This is a threat to every other country. America is now saying, look, we can do this. We've always done this to countries that we already dominated. Like, that's why Panama is not the best example here. But basically they're saying like, we can do this to any nation on the planet. If you don't abide by our needs, by our demands, this could happen to you. And what's crazy about it is that if the rest of the world realized what was going on and actually had some kind of backbone, they could apply an international standard. They could actually apply some pressure to America. They could put a dent in the American imperial armor, but partially because they also stand to gain from the same systems, endless third world extraction at the behest of their own capital owners. And they have been elected into positions of power to maintain the same exact system. They just don't want to press America at all. And in the absence of the rest of the world coming together and uniting against America, no one's going to be able to do shit. Okay? That's it. No one is going to do shit.
To her overall, Maduro comes off as defiant. The wife seems defeated and small. That's our team making these observations. And she says that she's pleading not guilty, quote unquote, completely innocent. So we are hearing from her at this point, Carrie.
Yes. Well, she's entering her plea. This is part of what you see at an arraignment. But again, she was a power player in Venezuela politics and government. And, in the indictment, the government all.
What? Why every country combined still couldn't invade the U.S.? Okay, stop. That's such a stupid argument. America has nuclear arms, man. We're not talking about an actual invasion. This is like the same with Israel, okay? It's pressure. It's pressure points. It's destabilization. It's crippling the economy. Like, that's not... America has nukes. We're not talking about invading America. Also, I'm American. I live in America. I don't want America to be invaded, okay? Like, I'm saying that there is a much better way to go about this, but that requires collaboration with the rest of the international community. Okay? Yes, L, I know, I'm very selfish. I'm very selfish because I don't want nuclear holocaust to take place, dude. What are you talking about? It's the same reason why I say I don't want Russia to be invaded either, okay? I'm not Russian. What are we talking about? Shut the up. You guys are so dumb. Oh, God.
Also alleges that both she and her husband maintained their own personal groups of state-sponsored gangs to facilitate and protect their drug trafficking operations. I mean, this is extensive, powerful stuff here, and she appears to be right there with Maduro all along. In fact, there's some local reporting that I was looking at earlier that has suggested along the way that she may be even more.
Let the goat speak on it.
I don't fully support Trump taking over Venezuela, but come on! People have suffered under Maduro forever. Getting him out is at least some good, right?
Was U.S. intervention good for Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan? Be real for a second.
But look, people are celebrating in Venezuela. If the
This is the only AI usage that I find to be appropriate.
Ayatollah got ousted in Iran, people would celebrate too.
No Venezuelan perspective will change U.S. foreign policy patterns. If every U.S.-led regime change caused more instability, worse living conditions, and long-term chaos, why would Venezuela magically be different?
Okay, but at least the economy will grow. Sounds like a win-win.
Grow for who? ExxonMobil? Chevron? Wall Street? What happens is simple. Maduro gets replaced by a Western-backed strongman who sells off oil and resources to U.S. corporations for pennies.
But that still helps rebuild, no?
No, that's extraction, not development. Trump literally said controlling oil reserves was a strategic...
Yeah, like, look at Africa, dude. Okay? Look at Africa. Oh, so much development took place, dude. What do you mean? No, we as America, we in the Western world, we do not want these places to actually develop, because if their material conditions improve, then we can't continue extracting the natural resources for pennies on the fucking dollar. There is no real development taking place. The only development that will take place is logistical supply lines. Okay, that's it. That make the extraction easier. There is no real development that takes place. It doesn't translate to like better building standards or better homes and more buildings in general, or a robust infrastructure. The infrastructure only helps with the extraction. It's always logistics. Okay, look at India. It's not, you get roads, okay, that you can't even use because you don't even have money to purchase a car or anything like that. But the only development that takes place in this process is development that does not improve the material conditions of the average person, but instead development that improves logistics, supply chains, makes it easier to extract the resources. You don't get to see a piece of that at all.
interest. This isn't humanitarianism, it's corporate foreign policy.
So this wasn't done for the people?
The illegal act of kidnapping Maduro and claiming Venezuela does not benefit American citizens nor Venezuelans. It benefits rich oil corporations who do not have your best interest in mind. This ain't about fighting dictatorship or drugs. It's about expanding capital. Always has been. Follow for more.
I don't fully support
My goat, Comrade SpongeBob, Comrade SquarePants. Check the comments if you think you can take it. No, you have freed us. Oh, I wouldn't say freed, more like under new management. As a Venezuelan, and then it's Agartha Charlie Kirk. And then the no dictator's card when a dictator is removed. Don't disrespect Patrick like that. He isn't that dumb. Yeah, I do love me some. This time it's different argumentation, but I think I've been a little bit too aggressive with people, and it probably doesn't look good for those who are just coming in, who are confused and trying to understand it. So I recognize that I probably should dial it back when I'm coming across as very harsh to people that go, what about the perspective of the Venezuelans? But like, I've just heard it so much. This has been my entire political commentary career where it's like, oh my God, dude, like, it's just, what do you say? What do you say? What do you do? Like, real regime change hasn't been tried yet. You don't understand. This time it's going to be good. This time it's going to be good. This time it's going to be good. It's not. It's not. And your perspective from the American foreign policy position doesn't matter. And it's not even like, it's not as though the American government is even presenting themselves as giving a shit about your humanity at all. That's what's so crazy. Oh, trust me, bro. This time it's different, bro. Just one more regime change, bro. This time it'll work, bro. We get the oil, bro. Trust us. We'll be a win-win, bro. Previous attempts were not done well. We learn from them, bro. You know what's funny? Trump is saying that. The 2002 coup was more crazy because once they got into power, they disbanded the parliament, the Supreme Court, the Electoral Committee, the Attorney General, etc. Why has this not even been mentioned by anyone? Because that one was different, bro. This time is different, bro. Ironically enough, I think Trump wants to do regime change, but also does low-key recognize, I hate to give him credit in any way, shape, or form, but I do think the reason why they don't want Machado and the reason why they're trying to work with the current administration does feel like they just understand how difficult of a process it is to just like literally send in the military and do the exact same thing Iraq style, right? Because like they know, no, it's not because Machado took his Peace Prize. That's the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post argument. I don't believe that. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe that that's one reason, right? I'm sure Trump is so narcissistic that I'm sure that played a role in him, that probably pushed him over the edge, right? But the reality of the matter is there are still smart thinkers behind him. They're evil, but there are intelligent people in this process. Because if they were simply looking at this like as Iraq 2.0, instead of analyzing this from the perspective of a post-global war on terror administration, they would just do Iraq 2.0. They would just do shock and awe, all this shit. I'm not giving Trump credit. I'm giving the State Department more credit in still having some semblance of analysis here in enacting their cruel agendas. Okay? They're a little bit more rational than you guys think they are. And I think that they recognize that Maduro arming the out of the local population, okay, and the amount of influence that they still have over the military, right, led them to realize that they have to at least threaten the current administration by doing this to Maduro and then force them to play ball. Because as I said before, let's say they didn't just do this, but put Machado in power, right? They brought Machado in. There would be insane strife on the streets. Okay, everybody who is currently saying like, oh, but the Venezuelans are dancing, they're throwing parades. Would there be people that are excited that like the Chavistas are gone? Sure. Would there be Venezuelans who've been duped into thinking that Chavez is a bad guy? That attitude is done. The Bolivarian Revolution is over. All this stuff. Certainly, there would be some people, right? There's hogs in every country, okay, and there's also some good reason to feel excited at the prospect of having or thinking that there will be new ownership over the country, right? Because if you have been protesting against this administration and your friends have been killed, then you're obviously not going to be happy about Maduro at all or his administration at all. That makes sense. So there will be people who will dupe themselves into believing that like this will be good for them. There will be people who have like real interest in revenge, right? However, Machado is a true believer and really believes Trump was bringing democracy. They needed someone realistic and cynical to work with. You are deluded, okay? No, Machado is not a true believer that thinks Trump is bringing democracy. What are you saying? Oh my God, it's so hard for me to be chill about this stuff, okay? No, she has been an active thorn on Chavez's side as well as Maduro's. She is a fucking CIA asset, brother. What are you, or sister? What are you saying? She is no different than Juan Guaido. Is that the reason? Because she's such a firm and committed believer in real democracy in Venezuela that she was begging Israel for intervention to push America to the best of their ability? That's why she was like, oh, Israel didn't do a genocide. Israel's so awesome. We're going to put the Venezuelan embassy in Jerusalem. That's really how... That is the number one concern, you think, for Venezuelans? The number one concern for Venezuelans, you think, is the privatization of all the oil extraction and also all the gold to sell off the Venezuelan coastline to like American hospitality? Is that what you think? Yeah, real believer in democracy. Come on, dude. She was demanding that they drop bombs over Caracas. It's ridiculous. Yeah, here she is with pro-democracy leader Bush. Unironically, a line of thought some Latin Americans believe, yes, you have to remember, even kind-hearted people can be duped into believing this kind of stuff. If propaganda didn't work, the American government would have spent billions of dollars pumping every airwave with this kind of narrative. Okay? That's it. It's so ridiculous.